Okay, we've had to be manual on this one. The technology was not working. So, this is another episode of Guitar Talk with my friend Ian Dunsy Dunsmore of the legendary Dunsy's Guitar World YouTube programme. So, you've probably missed all the best stories because we've been talking for about an hour.
About 2 hours.
About 2 hours, and we've covered some incredible anecdotes. But what if we start with?
I think we've covered anecdotes we maybe can't share on this particular medium just because of potential legal issues.
Correct, right. So let's start with question number one. What was your first guitar?
First guitar I bought off my Uncle David. It was a Japanese copy of a Gibson Hummingbird, which I believe he got from my granny's John England catalogue.
Right.
He bought it for he bought it for a tenner, I think, maybe 15 quid. Sold it to me for what he bought it for, and I had a broken string, and I was so pleased to get it. I got it home. I didn't know how to tune it. I didn't have one of these wee pipes to learn how to tune it.
Oh, yeah.
So there's 5 out of tune strings, no top E string, and I put on Prowler by Iron Maiden, and I just sat there strumming, and I thought, I've got this. I thought, you know, this looks quite easy, this guitar thing. For a tenner, I've invested in a guitar, and I can play this Iron Maiden song, which I love. So that was the first guitar, which I think my friend's wife, her ex-wife, still has.
Really? What was the first time you heard about a guitar and just went, like, that's for me, that's what I'm going to do in my life? The first time it really, I know it's corny, spoke to you, first time it like touched your soul and you went, that's it?
I think maybe a bigger thing, like music. I was into music before I wanted to play guitar. Like my auntie moved to South Africa in 1974, I think, and she left me a Beatles singles and a wee dance radio thing. So I loved the harmony and the sounds of the Beatles. So in the 70s, like I remember the Osmonds, I think the first album that somebody bought me when I was about 7 was an Osmonds greatest hits. So I liked music, but it was probably about 79. During that time, there was a lot of sort of two-tone revival going on in the UK. But then heavy metal, like you would turn on the TV and you would see Saxon and Motorhead. Yeah. And the sound of the electric guitar at that point in time, I thought, I need to get one of these. That's what I want to do. I loved the sound of, just that raw sound of late 70s, early 80s heavy metal. I thought, I need to get into this.
You don't think at the time, I mean, perhaps every generation, there's 10 years between me and Dunsy, by the way, so we've got slightly different reference points, but maybe every generation thinks, you know, when I was a kid, that's the best music. You know, is it Mark Ella, David Hepworth wrote this book. It's called 1971. I would strongly recommend it. And at the start of the book, he says, everybody, if you take the year you're 21, is that the best year of music ever? Because when you're 21, you've maybe got a bit of disposable income. It's the first time you could call yourself someone approaching an adult. You've got money to buy records, and everyone will say, best year ever. If you were born in 1900, you'd say 1921 is the best. And so forth, right? And he says, now I know everyone says it, he says the difference is I'm right. I think he was born in 1950, so his is 71. And of course, in the book, I mean, it's unbelievable. The first every chapter rather, he'll list the albums that came out that month. Yeah. And you just go, that can't be right.
All the stuff that came out, huh?
Yeah, but it kind of is. So for me, it would be 1977, by which time I'd had a few years, when I was 21, I'd had a few years of listening to Wishbone, Rory Gallagher, Free, Skinner, we were just talking about. And you don't realise at the time just how, you know, if you like, history is being made, seeing the Ramones at Clouds. Yeah. You don't really realise that, you know, this is something that, and you know, I was saying, what's the first time that music really touched your soul? I can remember being in my aunt's flat in Llandudno, and I phoned her, she worked in a china shop, and I said, is there any danger you could buy me a single? Because I had heard All Right Now.
Yeah,
on the radio. And when you heard that first chord, I was just like, what is this sound? What is this magical sound? Who would have thought 50 years later, we'd still be arguing about what that chord is.
How it was played.
Yeah.
And there were 500 videos on YouTube. Well, actually, he plays the open G, this bit.
Yeah.
So I think, I know.
Exactly. So who's your first favourite guitarist?
I said to you earlier, like, as a band sort of thing, the album, the first band I was in was
Judas Priest.
Mechanics.
Oh, UFO, yeah.
By UFO. we loved the Paul Chapman era of UFO, and then when we put that on, I think side 2, We Belong Tonight, and Let It Rain, like that's exactly what we just wanted to sound like that. So probably one of my first, and I don't think it was so much for the lead work, just the chordy sort of sound was the Chapman era of UFO, Sabbath, learning the power chord Sabbath. This was a huge thing for me as well. But I think as I got a bit further on in my own playing, the first real sort of guitar hero I had was like Joe Perry, and I think a lot of that was to do with just how cool he looked. I thought he was just the coolest looking guy. You know, he was playing like, he had a black Les Paul Custom at that time, and he just looked great. And I thought, he sounds really good, and I want to look like Joe Perry.
And he had the rich bitch slung on backwards.
Slung on backwards, aye.
You know,
so I think my overall guitar hero, certainly at that point in time, was to do with how good his band were and how good he looked, and a really good player as well was probably Joe Perry.
Do you think as well, you know, if I'll go in a minute, like, you know, the first gigs you ever went to, I mean, what's amazing is, retrospectively, if you said to me, I saw Judas Priest or whatever, I would guarantee the next thing will be, you'll never guess who the support was.
I do.
You know?
I do that all the time. Like, people will say, did you see Dio at the Playhouse in '83? And I'll say, the support man was wasted. Yeah. Because you always remember who it was, eh?
Yeah. We were just talking about the legendary, I don't know if it's a mistake, because I mean, Golden Earring have a song that has endured for 50 years, which is Radar Love, which everybody loves. But Golden Earring made the decision, or the management did, to take the then unknown Leonard Skinner on tour with them, much like Sabbath taking the then unknown.
Taking Van Halen,
on tour. Now, sometimes bands make a bit of a boo-boo with that. And now, I've seen UFO, I think, 5 times. The first time was with Michael Schenker, and to contradict what we just said, I can't remember the support act, but the second time was at the Odeon in Edinburgh. I think that was again with Michael Schenker, although it might have been with Paul Chapman, and the support band was Girl.
It would be Chapman.
Right. And Girl were virtually booed off.
They didn't go down particularly well, no. But I love Girl as well.
I love Girl.
Such a good band, yeah.
And then I saw the what I would term Neil Carter gig at the Playhouse.
Was that 83?
It was when they had Lonely Heart. So Neil Carter came out and played the sax.
Oh, yeah.
Behind the keys. He's got that big white Gresh as well.
Yeah.
And it was like, and you know the song written about him, you know, by Wild Horses, you know.
Aye.
You're up there with the stars, you should be still in bars, you know, a little bitter.
I always,
Neil Carter's great, by the way.
Always loved UFO. Like I said, I got into the Paul Chapman era first, but it's an era thing, you know, like in 1980 I'm 14. So the album that's coming out would be The Wild, the Willing and the Innocent. So I get into that, but I'm a huge fan of both Tonka and Schenker. But when you get a bit older and you go back and you think, when I listen to the Strangers in the Night, it's like flawless, absolutely flawless performance. And I don't think there was anybody better at the top of the game than Michael was at that point.
No, he was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And a run of albums. My favourite is Force It. Yeah. It's got Lost Love, which is my favourite. But then, obviously, you know, Lights Out is, you know, is as close to a perfect heavy rock album as you could get. And they toured constantly, them, Priest and Lizzie. Yeah. Just kept on doing it.
What I found, I don't know if people find it quite good, but because Michael had left, in the early 80s you could see MSG live. Yeah. And you could see UFO. So I could still see Michael, and then a month later see UFO. They just didn't happen to be on stage at the same time. You know, that was the only thing.
You know, that's like the Odeon Cinema in Edinburgh. This is the Black Rose tour, Lizzie with Gary Moore, and you could hear everyone talking when you went in and were coming out. And there's lots and lots of people saying, why can't they take Wild Horses as a support? Yeah, because then you'd get to see Brian.
Yes.
And I saw Wild Horses at Tiffany's.
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany's, by the way, was called Cinderella Rockefellers.
Cinderella Rockers.
Right? It was a discotheque, and it then became Tiffany's, and in the probably late 70s, so Frankie Miller, Kato Bell, The Pretenders, Wild Horses, The Motors, and Def Leppard.
Aye. Somebody posted photographs on Facebook the other week.
Yeah, saw them.
Of
I
that
was
gig.
at that gig. Guess who the sport act was for Def Leppard is? We've mentioned them already today.
Oh, I don't know who was it.
My friend used to play guitar with them, Cadiz.
Ah, that's it.
But they were called Brody at the time.
Uh-huh.
And Kenny Brody, the guitarist, had left, and he'd been replaced by a guy called Justin Robertson. I was at primary school with.
Small one.
And then Justin moved to America. Nelson McFarlane, who's in the sensational Alex Harvey tribute, and the Meisner Effect. Nelson's in quite a few bands. He joined Cadiz from Gilt Edge, and he'd said to Keith, Justin's going to America, you could come and you could go from Gilt Edge to Cadiz, and I joined Gilt Edge. So there's a big merry-go-round.
A circle.
Yeah. And the singer with Gilt Edge when I was in the band, he changed their name to Dark Angel to be more metal, was a guy called Gordon Band, who's still around now. And Gordon had played at the Apollo, where the bill was Colossus from Dundee.
I remember that name, aye.
Gordon was the singer. Middle of the bill was Magnum.
Right.
And top was Def Leppard. And Gordon told me that all day the road crew, the sound guys were saying, these young kids from Sheffield, they don't know what they've taken on. You know, Magnum have been around for years.
Yeah.
And then of course Def Leppard came on and everyone was just like, you know, just amazing. You know, when I saw them at Tiffany's, they were a fully formed, tight as you like, rock band with songs. It just so happened they were only about 18.
And they look great as well.
And they look fantastic.
Going back to the Wild Horses albums, I was listening to them when I was on holiday last month, and I absolutely love those two albums. But I was thinking, as good as Robbo was and Lizzie with the wah wah, I think some of his greatest wah wah work is done on those two albums. His lead playing is just unbelievably good.
Yeah.
Melodic playing on the two Wild Horses albums.
I'll Give You Love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean it's just an absolute knockout. Have you got the? It's a multi-pack single, and they do Eddie Kendrick on a Saturday night, and they do Rockin' It Away.
Yeah.
And you can now get a Japanese live.
I've seen it. I think the one I've got is a grey double 7-inch single.
Yeah, I've got that.
Aye. He's playing on those two albums. It's just like I listen to him and think, man, that is so good, so melodic.
Yep.
Just perfect playing on those two albums. His wah wah work is stellar.
I mean, I've had a wah pedal since I was yay high, and I'm still no better at not going wah 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 wah, right? And if you can listen to Brian's playing, a lot of time the wah, that throatiness is him pulling it up the way, you know, releasing it. And we, you know, when we were all very young, we used to think, I bet he's got Morley, I bet he's got like the most big money. And you'd go and see Lizzie and he'd have a colour sound.
That's what he was using?
Yeah, $12.99. He had a yellow colour sound, and the colour sound sweep was like this. You know, like a Crybaby's like that, but it'll stop at any point. So if you're Michael Schenker, you can do that. But the colour sound was like that, but it flapped down.
Right.
And the one I've got just now is George Lynch, you know, the Morley.
I know the one,
And you just touch it and it comes on.
What foot do you use? Because over the last 40 years of guitar playing, I've kind of went between, because like, you know, like if I'm driving, then I'm accelerating with my right foot.
Yes.
So I keep changing, because then I think if I've got more pedals, I need to change my other pedals. So I go between left and right, and I've found I'm not any better with either.
Yeah, I'm pretty useless with either. I'm right-footed, so the wah for me would have to be with my right foot, and that means, of course, you've got this horrendous.
Yes.
You know, I need my boost on, but I need the wah on as well. So if you do that, you'll probably end up falling over or something. You know? So.
That's why, like, occasionally I'll go with my left foot, but then because I'm not very good at it anyway, I find it's not really inhibiting my playing any. I'm equally amateur with either.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. Paul Chapman. Just before we leave UFO, Paul Chapman and Michael and stuff, and Forgotten Guy, Atomic Tommy M.
Ah, yes.
Never saw him. I've got the records, but never saw him.
I saw him at the, if you back to sport bands, it was, that would have been 85 or 86. The Bannerlands sport bands were FM and Shy.
I had a beer with the guys in FM in London, in about, was that, 84 or something. They'd come back from Germany with Meatloaf.
Yeah.
And they'd just been signed.
That's
and
right.
They were cock a hoop.
Ah.
And they'd been Wildfire before they went.
Before that, aye.
Oh no. That's a knock at the door. We're going to have to stop for 1 second.